Hello, everyone. Welcome back again to another episode of Second and Saints. I'm John Hendricks alongside Ross Jackson, coming at you on this fine Thursday evening. Minicamp is in the books, Ross. We should be happy about it, but man, so much Saints stuff to talk about today. It's like a bomb exploded, I'd say. But man, first of all, how you doing? We're all recovering, but how you doing, man?
I'm great, man. I'm great. Yeah, no, it was a very, very busy day today. Lots to dive in on, and just like it was as if everybody just went, you know what? Let's just do all of it today. We'll just do it all today. Everything. So
never a dull moment. So much never a dull moment, and we're so close and stuff. But look, the flow tonight is going to be a little bit different. So we want to definitely get your questions. So if you put your questions in, we're going to come back to them. But we want to focus on minicamp, and obviously we're going to talk about Alvin Kamara. We're going to talk about Taysom Hill and Juwan Johnson and stuff. So just want to put that caveat out there for everybody. But Ross, let's just hop into it. Alvin Kamara, and let's preface this: we saw him at the facility before practice, and he partook in the walkthroughs. So before everybody gets this notion that he just like stormed out of practice, or people throw all this stuff out like he just didn't show up or all this other stuff, he was at the facility, partook in walkthroughs, and then now it's a situation where there's clearly a contract dispute. And the unfortunate part is that the Saints were moving in such a positive direction. They patched things up with Marshawn. Things were on the up and up. Dennis Allen talking about it. And then here comes this that throws a monkey wrench in everything and stuff. And so it's like now you're sitting here. Is AK kind of valid in his thoughts? I guess is the first thing I would ask. And then the second thing that we talk about is where's the sweet spot to work through this?
Yeah. I'm going to say real quick too. I think this is probably going to be looked at as a much bigger issue outside of the facility than it is going to be looked at inside the facility and inside the organization. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Like this is a little bit more run of the mill than I think that people are reacting to. But I think Alvin Kamara is 100% right to ask for money, or not ask for money, but ask for more in this situation. And the reason why I pivot from saying more, ask for money, to just asking for more is because I think the crux of the issue is more about guaranteed money and years of commitment by the team to Alvin Kamara. I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying, you know what, look, there's $10 million on the books in terms of base salary this year. Only $1 million of that is guaranteed. There's a bunch of other stuff that's there, but it's all stuff that's already been paid out and things like that. And then you look at next year where there's a $22 million base salary, $0 of it is guaranteed. Running backs in today's game at the age that Alvin Kamara is at, being still an effective running back when used properly, should not be playing on $1 million of guarantees over the next 2 years. I don't blame him for saying, I want a better commitment. I want a bigger commitment, or his camp from saying we deserve a bigger commitment for what is a star player in the NFL. And this is a guy that everybody keeps saying, and we've been told, John, since the combine, that he was going to be a huge part of this offense in 2024. I don't think that the lack of progress is because there is a lack of interest in getting it done. I think the lack of progress is that it's minicamp. It's OTAs. Yeah. There's stuff to do. Let's come back to this in the break before training camp. I think this is going to be either it's going to be a big issue when it turns into a big issue, or it's going to be a non-issue. And I think as of right now, I think it's a lot of noise, but I don't think it's a big issue right now. If it becomes a big issue, then it becomes a big issue. But at this moment, John, I just don't think that it is.
Yeah, I think everybody outside, you hit on it. I think everybody on the outside is blowing this up. And I understand the optics don't look good, right? And then Dennis Allen saying, I haven't talked to him yet. I want to make sure I talk to him before I give you an actual answer and all these other things. Like, you know, I understand that. And I respect that. I get that. And the thing is, we're talking about Kamara's got a $29 million cap hit next year. There's no way that they're paying that, right? Everybody knows that. And so the thing is, where is the commitment going to lie going into the next couple of years? And what I kind of pointed out on some of the things is maybe they could take a page from what they've done with like DeMario, what they've done with Tyron, what they've done with Cam Jordan. Maybe that's the sweet spot. And I'm not saying that they should go something crazy, but if you can give him some of the average per year, you know what I'm saying, is that could fit maybe in that $8 to $10 million range. I'm just throwing out some rough numbers right now. I'm not saying that's what they should do, but I think he wants the commitment, is that I want to be here maybe 2 or 3 more years, but making sure that I have a commitment. But this is no surprise on how these void years do with these contracts and how they escalate. They always backload the money. That's not a new practice. They always make sure that they push the money down, and people say kick the can down the road, and oh my gosh, now this is where it's a big problem. But I think to get him, his agent's going to come from one side. Mickey and the team, obviously, Kamara's been here since 2017. They felt good enough to give him a big contract extension back when it was, a thing, if you will. And so I think they can make this right. And I know that they'll make this right. And, it's just, I think it's getting to be blown up in a huge way. Where do you see maybe that sweet spot for the Saints? Because it sounds like, again, from the outside looking in and everything you hear, these two are that far apart. Maybe they're realistically that far apart. I mean, you just don't know, but all that's got to get sorted out, obviously.
Yeah. I think the thing that I would look at when I dig into it is like how much the APY doesn't matter to me. You can give him a 2-year extension that is $20 million per year. That number doesn't actually mean anything. What means something is the number that's guaranteed. And so right now he's sitting at a $15 million APY. Christian McCaffrey just got his extension. He's sitting at $19.5 million. If you come in at $17 million over the course, per year over the course of the next 2 years, but you guarantee $8 million per year, or you guarantee $8 million next year, that could be all that it takes. I mean, even Christian McCaffrey's deal is, he was extended into 2026 and 2027 with all this new money. $0 of it is guaranteed when it comes to the base salary that's attached to it. It was all signing bonus and everything. And so the way that I look at this for AK is you give him a couple years, you give him money that's guaranteed over the course of those couple of years. It doesn't matter what the APY is. It doesn't mean anything. And then you move on from there. I think that's the way that you end up building it out. And then basically like you do, a 2-year, let's call it a $35 million extension. That's $17.5 million per year. You give them $7 million of that next year. You put the other $22 million the year after that and guarantee none of it, but then you guarantee all of the $7 for 2025, and all of a sudden he's in a better situation. So all that it is really about giving him additional years and additional guarantees that show, hey, we're committed to you, and here's an opportunity for you to commit to us. Alvin Kamara has told us before that he wants to finish his career as a New Orleans Saint. He's not going to make this hard. And I think that that's also evidenced by the fact that the Saints and he have been talking about a contract and a contract restructure for a couple of months now. And he still showed up for 2 of the 3 days of minicamps, which to me is way more important than the 1 day of minicamp that he didn't participate in the entirety of.
Sure, absolutely. And look, there's some big points being brought up. And Michael, that we just talked about talking about this is actually kind of his last year. That's what we're talking about, because again, $29 million cap hit. He's not going to see that. It's just not possible. But they do have some window. They have some time to figure this out. And look, I think Jono brings up a really good point. And it's the question that I think that needs to be answered. 5-ish, maybe 6 weeks to training camp. Is this something that's going to be tied up? And is it going to linger in a training camp? Off the bat, I don't think so. But it is a potential problem that could linger in a training camp. And so, again, what do you think?
It very well could, because training camp might be the next time that he's around the team and in place to actually put pen to paper on a contract. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just looking at like the logistic nature of it, it could go into training camp just because of that very factor. But up until then, it's not like they're going to sit on their hands in the midst of all this. I imagine that some of that conversation is going to happen over the course of those 5 to 6 weeks. And I imagine that like there will be some progress that's made during that time, even though maybe the contract doesn't get signed or isn't done until they get into training camp, because that's when he's back around the team and able to sign the contract, which would mean that we might not hear anything until the contract actually gets done. But the progress was being made the whole time. We just weren't aware of it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is those talks are going to happen. And look, talking to players in the locker room, you talk to them too. And every player I talk to, I'm asking what they're doing kind of with this time. And some are getting out of the country, some are going on vacation, some are still working, putting in work because there's a lot to learn in this playbook. And some are going to kind of split the difference. Some are going to continue training. And obviously some players are going to have to rehab. But, I don't think it's time to hit the panic button. Actually, I know it's not time to hit the panic button, right? That's the thing is everybody's kind of has this gut initial reaction to assume the worst when it comes to this situation. And it's like trade AK, or it's time to move on, or it's blah, blah, blah. It's like, y'all got to get out of your feels for a second and let's take a step back and let's really assess the situation. Let's look at the situation. Now, look, to be fair, Kamara's production has been down, but I think in his defense, he's not used properly. I mean, we know that. And in B, you got a chance to make that right in this Clint Kubiak offense. And look, even though he was away, he was still learning playbook. He's still learning things. He's still involved. I mean, it's not like he just show up and said, all right, I'm here now, whatever, you know what I'm saying? So I think this is a space where they're going to give it the proper attention. He sent a very loud and clear message today by what he was doing. I don't think this is something insane, and it's going to play out how it should. I think at the end of the day, they're going to make things right, and that's all there is to it. And so I think this will be a non-issue when it comes to training camp. But yes, there is the possibility it could linger in a training camp, and if it does linger in a training camp and it's still not done, then we'll probably hit the panic button a little bit more, but not much.
Yeah, then it's time to kind of say, okay, so where are they going to go here? But the other thing too is that like holdouts aren't a thing anymore. Like amongst all the things that the NFLPA hasn't been able to negotiate, one of them was the ability to hold out. And so, I mean, all you're doing is costing yourself money at this point. And so I think that there would be unlike in 2020, when the last time that this happened, I think that there would be a concerted effort to make sure from Alvin Kamara's side of this, that like the holdout stuff isn't happening, yada, yada, yada. I can't really think of many examples in which New Orleans Saints have been in a situation like this and it didn't get worked out.
Right.
I know that people will point to like CJ Garner-Johnson, but like CJ Garner-Johnson wanted to be paid money. Yeah. He wanted to be paid money at a position that he didn't play. Trey Hendrickson wasn't out there asking for more money. His contract expired. The Saints weren't going to pay him as a top defensive end to be the fourth or fifth defensive end on their roster. Marcus Williams, the contract expired. They wanted to repurpose that money to build a better safety tandem. And if you ask me, they did. Those aren't the same thing as this. And when the Saints have been faced with situations like this, where I believe that there a Cam hold in at one point or something like that too.
I vaguely remember it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was like the Alvin Kamara one back in 2020. There's other ones like, they typically get these things done. Like there's not really many examples of the team not doing right by people that are handling their negotiations, and the ones that they have moved on from, they moved on from for other reasons. I don't see this being something that if it does linger, and if it does go wrong, it's the organization's issue. It's not because Alvin Kamara made things complicated. Right.
And like I said, it's just a shame that you've had all this positive momentum in this. I don't want to say feels like a step back, but it definitely is a concern, right? Scala points out about DeMario having contract issues, but they brought that back in real quick, and maybe the same with AK. But I think just moving forward, if I'm a guy like Jordan Mims, I'm really happy right now because you could get increased workload.
Get some reps.
That running back room, make no mistake, and I'm not telling you that he's going to be there or start or anything, but I don't want to tell you that this running back room will be fine without Al Kamara. I'm not saying that, but I think this running back room is a little bit better than we probably think it's going to be in some aspects under this Clint Kubiak offense. And we know about Taysom Hill too. And look, you'd rather have Alvin Kamara in this offense. We saw yesterday in that final drill, the screen execution that worked
Right.
and the wheel route. Like those two things. And go back on past episode or just past episodes. Just go back to yesterday's episode, Second and Saints. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we talked at length about that drive and just the concept of the offense and just kind of how it benefits a guy like Kamara, a guy like Taysom Hill, where they can use him properly. And I think that's the big thing. And so, again, I think everybody's kind of in a situation where it's unsettling and people are reacting out of their feels, but it's going to get resolved one way or another. I don't think this is a situation where you just say, okay, well, let's just trade him, because that would kind of defeat the purpose of what you're trying to do. AK is a voice in the locker room. He's somebody that is very well respected within the players, the organization. And so I think it's overblown at this point.
Yeah, I think a trade would be a big time stain on the organization. And that is a reactionary thing. And the Saints don't do reactionary stuff. Like, look at the way that they handled, like, moving on from Pete Carmichael. Like, what we all thought was maybe like one of the most obvious choices that they had to make. What'd they do? They went away. They thought about it. They discussed everything. They broke it all down. They talked to everybody, all this other stuff. And then they came back and then they made that decision. They didn't even rush into that choice. They're not going to be reactionary and rushing into a decision here when it comes to Alvin Kamara and treat that without, how do I want to say this? But they don't want to treat that recklessly. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense.
And the CJ Gardner, and the CJ Gardner Johnson thing was completely different. Like, that one was very good situation. Different. So that was a reason why you saw him like get traded, because that did not go well. So with Kamara, it's going to dominate the storylines and everybody's going to speculate. And now we're going to have, 31 other teams writing about the hot takes about how they're going to trade for Alvin Kamara. And every team's going to get trade
proposals. Alvin Kamara for a 7th round pick to the Baltimore Ravens or whatever. Like, it's gonna be insane.
Right. And Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara tandem in Baltimore. I mean, so again, Alvin Kamara, we'll see how it goes. But again, if you're just joining us or if you're just tuning in, we're kind of getting through some of the big topics today. Then we're going to go into minicamp. So again, if you do put in some questions, we definitely want to get to them, but probably more towards the end and such. So just keep an eye on that. The second thing I'd say, before we talk about Juwan Johnson, I would say the Chase Young update.
Yeah,
we told you maybe a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, that things were trending in the right direction for Chase Young and that he should be ready for start of training camp. I mean, but a positive update. He saw Dr. Watkins today, and so it's one step closer. And obviously Chase Young's one day at a time, but that's extremely good news for the Saints, extremely encouraging news for the Saints. And look, we haven't really talked too much about Chase Young. I mean, we have, but we haven't. But I think the biggest thing is going back to what Mickey talked about at the Golf Classic, is how much he just kind of dove right into the deep end of the pool and has learned the playbook. And everybody has said how bought in he was. And I think that was the biggest concern is you saw, like, last year or even in Washington, sometimes it seems like the effort might've been questionable. And of course we don't know exactly what was going on or what everything was, but I think the Saints are getting a player that's really excited to be here and really ready to contribute in a lot of ways. But a positive update on Chase Young is the main point.
It's not like Washington's culture was one that made you really want to run through a wall either for a long time. You know what I mean? If we're being honest here. And so I think that, like, the culture of New Orleans, which, like, I've talked to a lot of people within that building who have talked about how important the culture is and what they're doing to preserve the culture, and how maintaining the culture is an active process. It's not just establishing the culture, it's maintaining it over everything that's might be rough, that might be, weird. And don't think that, like, whatever goes on with one player doesn't have an impact on other players too. Like, those types of things happen as well. So there's a lot of work that goes into maintaining culture. I think that coming into an established one that wants to, and really kind of came into this season with, like, a charge of being together, that's very, very different than maybe what Chase Young was experiencing over in what any player would have experienced over in those days of Washington. I know last year was different, right? The Ron Rivera, all that kind of stuff. Like, Ron Rivera over the course of the past couple of years, like, started to change that conversation, that narrative, all those other things. Don't get me wrong, but Chase Young wasn't just there for the Ron Rivera days. He was there for the Snyder days too, which were not necessarily positive. And him being healthy and ready to go for camp would be huge, even if it's just like a couple weeks into camp or a week into camp or whatever. If he misses a little bit, just huge to start figuring out, okay, how do you really deploy these edge rushers that you have to maximize what you can do? How do you deploy this defensive line to maximize what you can do, make up for the ground that you lost last year, first sub 40 sack season since 2017, dropping again in terms of run defense and all this stuff? And I will say, John, one thing that we haven't gotten to talk about much on this show yet, because it's super not sexy, is that the Saints defense has done a very good job being in position to attack run gaps all throughout Minicamp these last 3 days. There's very few times where you really see an open runner. There have been those times, and a lot of those times it's some of the wide zone, like new concept-y stuff, or not new concept, but, evolving concept stuff. But like, there's not been a lot of times where somebody is running into the meat of the defense and just going off for a free run. You know what I mean? Like, there's been some good stuff there. And so adding Chase Young to that, I think, takes it even a step further.
Yeah. And again, he's going to be like, they're going to be cautious with him. It's not like I expect him first day at training camp, he's going to be like turned loose or anything. Like, they're going to be smart about that. And of course, the football shape is the things that he has to get into. I mean, the same thing was said about Kool-Aid McKinstry today. He looks great, but there's still a lot that he needs to work on and get into football shape and the rhythm and all that other stuff. And so, man, I definitely think that, this pass rush can be better. They just got to get to the quarterback. And we've talked about this on past episodes, that this is a thing they have to get better at, winning those one-on-one matchups, getting there. Can't have the almost sacks. I mean, pressures are good. That helps, but you got to finish the play. And that's a big difference for this defense. And so it remains to be seen. As always, this Gala says, sexy to someone, different stroke for different folks. Hey, we talk about special teams and try to make it exciting. So I know, like I always said, people say it's like paint dry, but we find it interesting, but we're also nerds. So I guess so. All right, so that's Chase Young. Let's talk Juwan Johnson, because Logan brings up a good question, because Sal Cannella, we can say his name right, Sal Cannella was brought in for a tryout. Now, he wasn't on the field, so everybody needs to know that.
Yeah, it's more of a workout than a
private workout tryouts. And so what's the chances they sign him to the deal? And then obviously let's talk about Juwan Johnson first, that, a foot surgery is something that was bothering him in the offseason, and so he's getting it corrected. Timeline sounds about like 6 to 8 weeks-ish maybe, but he's going to miss some time. He should be back for training camp. Again, one of those ramp-up periods. I mean, it's unfortunate because it's another injury for Juwan Johnson to have to deal with, but at the same time, you see other guys step up, the Foster Rose, Alan Holker. I mean, gosh, we're going to talk about him for sure at his camp. But again, we hadn't seen Tommy Hudson. We talked about Jimmy Graham last night. So not that I don't want to ignore the conversation on Jimmy Graham, but go back to last night. We talked about Jimmy Graham a lot, but this Sal Cannella, I no matter who it is, I see them adding to the room. That's like a given, right? I mean, this is how that's going to operate. But, is this a guy that maybe should be on the radar? Should they keep looking? I mean, a guy like a Jay Sternberger was another one. I mean, he's another person that could come out. I mean,
Tyler
there's
Croft.
I mean, there are people that you can look at for this, and it may not be what you're looking at. And if they would add a Jimmy Graham, I wouldn't expect it until like 2 days or a day before training camp starts.
Yeah. If I'm Jimmy, I'm signing like middle of training camp. Like, y'all go play in Arizona, and then I'll come and meet you. Like, I'm good. Or I might even wait till after joint practices, something like that. Like, I'm busy. The chance of them signing Sal Cannella, it's very hard to gauge, because it's not like it was a workout. And so it's hard to really be able to say, oh yeah, I've talked to some people about it that said that like it went well. But it went well could mean that, like, hey, he finished the workout. Like, you know what I mean? Because sometimes workouts don't go the distance. Everything. Like, sometimes it's pretty clear, like, oh, this guy doesn't have it and stuff. And so it doesn't sound like it was an, oh, this guy doesn't have it kind of a situation. They love the fact that he was massively competitive at the USFL, led the league with 6 receiving touchdowns, led all tight ends with his receiving and in receptions and receiving yards last year or this past spring with the UFL. He's a very talented player, 6'5", 240-ish pounds. Be great if he can get up to 250 if he's not already. That would probably go a long way for him too, but hard to gauge on like whether or not they'll sign him or what the percentage chance is that they'll sign him, because it was a 40-minute workout or whatever. And so it's a little bit tough to be able to gauge from that. But yeah, I agree with you, John. I think you add to the room no matter what. The big thing is, where do you open up the roster space too? Like, you would have to give some type of a corresponding move in order to get that done. So we'll have to see exactly how they go about it. But yeah, I think it makes sense to add to the room. I know there's not a lot of talent out there to add, but this is a guy that could potentially do that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and again, you're going to see these moves happen, and not saying that they won't bring him in, but it is something that to keep an eye out on. And Rose City brings up Jimmy Graham, of course. Again, just keep an eye out on it. It wouldn't surprise us. You know, I don't think they restructured Taysom Hill's Taysom Hill contract, his contract, $6.6 million. And now they're over $12 million in space to sign a player like Jimmy Graham. That just didn't happen. But
yeah, you were gonna be able to do that anyway.
you were gonna be able to do that. You're gonna be able to do that. Yeah. And so it is interesting that they did that. And again, we'll go back to February. We've talked about it, that he was going to be in the plans for the Saints offense all along. Yep. But this is now more of a commitment to a guy like Taysom Hill. I think it's very fascinating because he does so many things for this team. What do you make of this restructure? And is this just kind of financial semantics, or like we talked about last night, are they going to go try to get somebody?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it gives you a lot of financial flexibility, I think is the key thing. You could potentially go out there and get somebody now. It opens up the door for a trade now too, if you wanted to send some draft picks somewhere and bring some talent in. Because the tricky thing about trading on the offseason is you have to be able to trade. When you trade for a player, they have to be able to fit under your salary cap with their existing contract, unless you work something out with a team to, redo the deal before they do it. But then you have to give them more draft capital, all this other stuff. So ideally, you could just trade for somebody, get them in under the salary cap that you have, and then you can mess with their contract if you want to once they show up. So this now opens the door for them to be able to do something like that. But look, they're also going to need a couple $1 million for their practice squad. They're going to need a couple $1 million for injured reserve. They're going to need insurance money, I would call it too, to where, like, if there is an injury and they got to go out and get somebody, you're going to need that money. So there's a lot of different ways they go about it. The other thing that they could do too is save this money and potentially make a move at the trade deadline, which is now later in the year, thanks to the expanded thing. And then you're trading for a prorated contract. So now you've got like a little bit of space to be able to do stuff like that. If you feel like you're one piece away and some other team that has that piece is struggling, there's a chance you could pick up the phone and get something done there. Or you just save the money and roll it over into next season. And really what this becomes is you biding yourself a little bit more money for 2025, right? Because you can roll money over into the next year, which can trim into your salary cap overage, which would be a little bit redundant because you've just pushed money into next year in order to roll money over into next year. Doesn't make a ton of sense, but could be a way that you go. Because maybe there's like something that happens there that makes it a greater amount. But then the other part of it too, like, I think the biggest real takeaway here is kind of, as you mentioned, John, it's a commitment to Taysom Hill. It's basically like, hey, you're not going anywhere.
Right.
You're restructured.
You're not going to Denver, guys.
Right. Yeah. Like everybody can kind of let that one go. Like, I think this brings Taysom Hill closer to finishing his career with the New Orleans Saints. I don't know if a lot of people are looking at it that way, but I mean, we're talking about a guy who's 34?
He'll turn 34 in August. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we're talking about a guy that could potentially, like, now, like, go into 34 next season. He's going up to, it'll be, going into the season at 35. Like, yeah, this gets him a step closer to finishing his career here with the Saints.
Yeah. Which, I mean, to be fair, some people do care about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, longevity is a big thing for some players. And I mean, we've seen players come back after they leave and such like that. So, I mean, it does mean a little bit something for sure. But, again, it's all things that I don't think need to be answered. Like, if you were to rank about what needs to happen from the next 5-6 weeks, I don't think a lot of these are on the high on the totem pole. They are important, but I don't think it's something you say, I've got to deal with this tomorrow or else. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to handle 100%. The Kamara situation. You're going to have contact. And look, the contact's probably going to be, like, just paraphrasing, seeing what happened. I'm sure DA talked to Kamara today, like he said he was going to.
Right.
Then everything's going to be handled between the agent and Mickey Loomis. That's not a DA thing. And so that's
it's
something that has to
Alvin
come
Kamara
thing. Right. You talk to the agent. Hey, this is what they're offering. No, I don't like that. Or, hey, what about this? That's something that's going to be worked behind the scenes. And then the tight end stuff, again, that's agent, Mickey, and if they like the player enough, then they can look at that. And so you brought up trading. I think if they were to trade somebody, I'm looking at who's played for Clint Kubiak, specifically who's played under Clancy Barone, Clint Kubiak, Andrew Janako, all those guys. Like that would be like if you're trading for somebody and say, okay, I'm going to trade a fifth or a sixth, a fifth. Right. Falcons lost a fifth for nothing. Like fifth round pick apparently means nothing, but you know, you could trade something like that to go get one. Right. Yeah. We set the bar high. Set the standard.
That is one of the interesting things about Sal Cannella is that Clancy Barone had him in Chicago a couple years ago. I think it was when he was either only on a practice squad or maybe he was like on an off-season roster or whatever, but like there is some overlap there too. So that could be another thing that works in Sal Cannella's favor.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, this stuff isn't by chance, you know what I mean? Just like the whole you brought up the other day, and once upon a time, I think you played for the Breakers, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yes, yeah.
But you pointed out the Colorado State pipeline for Dallin Holker. That got asked today, and that was something that was so funny. Might have had some. I know. I tapped you on the shoulder. I didn't do hard, but I was like, you see that. So you sometimes learn some stuff on our show, so that's the cool thing. But man, let's go ahead. We've talked about the topics again. If you want to ask some questions, put them in the chat. We'll get to them now. Let's move into minicamp. Let's talk about the final day because a lot of good information. I think where I want to start is that final drive with Derek Carr.
Yeah.
The one where they were once again in the end of game situation. And so let me check notes and pull out all that other stuff. They were down 27-21. So they were down 27-21 is the scenario. It was 1:16 on the clock. The next one with Hainer was like 1:15, but 1:16 on the clock. And it was touchdown or bust, right? And so Carr ended up going 6 of 10. Now, one of those is a spike, so that does count as an incomplete pass. But where did it eventually evolve from is he's working from the 45-yard line, going that way. So across midfield. And so when it counted, when it mattered most on fourth down with 4 seconds left, checks notes, he found Chris Olave in the back of the end zone who was working against Marshawn Lattimore. This is the second day that he's been able to do this against the defense. And look, I get it. No pads, but Derek Carr looks comfortable in this offense. He feels comfortable. He knows he's comfortable. And I think it's just showing up. But this is a guy, when you saw all the stuff that they did last year when they signed him, the fourth quarter comebacks, this is what he was good at prior to coming to New Orleans.
Yep, absolutely. And John, I'll mention too, 1, 2, 3, 3 plays and a penalty before that.
Yeah, they had a 10-second runoff.
Yep. Fourth down with 44 seconds. He completes a pass over the middle of the field on a crossing route to Cedric Wilson.
3 passes went to Cedric Wilson today.
It was a Cedric Wilson heavy drive. And the thing that's really nice about this is that you see a fourth down conversion to pick up a much needed first down to keep things going. They run to the line of scrimmage. They go to snap it. And then they called a penalty. It was either like illegal procedure because somebody wasn't set, or maybe it was false start, whatever it was. And who knows if it was, I didn't catch if it was actually a penalty either. It might've been part of the game situation that they wanted to implement.
Riz does that all the the Yeah. Riz will put those in. So for sure.
It's like one of my favorite things that he does. And then so they had 31 seconds on first down that turned into 21 seconds on first down. And then still ended up getting into the end zone and finding a way to get it done. But you had 2 fourth down conversions, one of which for a touchdown, completions to guys like, Cedric Wilson and Jamal Williams and Chris Olave. That was pretty much like the drive. But then other targets to other guys like Mason Tipton got a target in there. Foster Moreau got a target in there, like just spreading the ball around too, which was the other thing that was really good to see, especially in a moment like that. And like, yes, I agree that look, they're in shorts, they're in shirts, all this stuff. But look, it's got to start somewhere, right?
Correct.
And this is where it started, and it looked really good.
Building blocks. And Dennis Allen said this team's not where it needs to be, and that's fair. Like we've kind of said this, don't eat the cheese just yet. It's good, it's positive. And again, I said this the other night, it might have been last night or the night before, but the fans are at the point where they want to see it on the field, and then that has to translate to wins, because we can tell you this all looks good, and then when they get into a game situation, it all looks like garbage. And that's hopefully not the case, but I feel like what is different, and we've talked about the vibe of this team and everything that's different about them. I think this offense and the execution and the game plans have put them in a place to succeed a lot better than what they have in the past couple of years. I mean, it's evident. It just is. And so, but that was a huge drive by Derek Carr, a second straight drive. I did the charting. I don't have it right in front of me because I wrote about it. And again, if you want to see all the notes, observations, Saints News Network, si.com/NFL/Saints. But I think Carr was like 35 of 48 or 32 of 48, something like that.
You're right.
And he had 3 touchdowns. 48. Yeah. And so, I think he looked good. Some of the incompletions, like somewhere like on that drive, Marshawn made a good pass breakup on one of the plays. And so, some of them were just a little off, like that throw to Tipton was in the end zone, but it was in the dirt. It was just a little bit
late,
short.
Just a little bit late. Yeah.
And man, I got to say, not that we're trying to bounce around, but Mason Tipton, you need to keep a little bit of an eye on him. He's been working a little bit more in the red zone. He's somebody that I pointed out yesterday has a really good burst. He drew that pass interference penalty. There might be a little something with him. Now, look, I think Cedric Wilson, and we talked about Equinemius St. Brown, they're looking good. And so we even mentioned that last night. Go back to the last episode and talk about, we talked about that's why maybe they don't need a Hunter Renfrow now. So they're actually playing a lot better than we think. But that was first and foremost. And let me just say, Blake Groupie made the extra point. He was 6 for 6 on the day. So the offense did end up winning. But the next series, since we're sticking with that, defense got a little bit of revenge with Jake Haener. And what I think I appreciate most is Colin Saunders' reaction at the end was extremely
100%.
He made it a point. So they had the same scenario, 4 downs. The screen pass that they tried at first failed miserably, threw it into the dirt. He had a short little completion to Jordan Mims. Then he wasn't on pace and on target with Equinemius St. Brown, but on the 4th down play, he tried to go to Jermaine Jackson over the middle, and DeMarco Jackson makes an awesome play on the ball, getting his hand in there for a pass breakup. And so the defense got a little bit of revenge. So we don't want to just sit here and say, well, the Saints offense is just superior and all this other stuff. Let's give credit where it's due. The Saints defense rallied, and so that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was a lot of back and forth for sure in terms of like the way that this went. I want to highlight too for DeMarco Jackson's pass breakup, which forced that 4 and out. DeMarco Jackson was playing as the underneath defender. He was kind of prowling the middle. Jermaine Jackson comes over the middle. He has a separate defender on him. And DeMarco Jackson just makes this play from about 5 yards shallow of of where Jermaine Jackson was. And so this wasn't like Jermaine Jackson in on tight coverage or anything like that. This is him prowling the middle of the field and getting that stop. Really, really nice stuff. Like that was really, really good stuff for him. He had a really nice couple of days, actually.
Yeah, and I think, we talked about the linebacker, and I hate to say, go back and check. I hate, not really, but like we've talked about it, like the Taysom, we've talked about this before, you know what I mean? But when we look at the linebacker room, you can't overlook a DeMarco Jackson. And so, again, we feel good about the 3 that are out there with Willie Gay Jr. and Pete Werner and, of course, DeMario. Khaleke Hudson we talked about, but DeMarco, I think, is kind of putting himself in that conversation where, look, hey, he's learning, he's growing, he's thriving a little bit. And so I think that's a good thing for sure for him and his development. And Sarah Toby says about loving here development. Look, this is a guy who, I mean, again, you don't think about too much, but you think about the recovered block punt last year and that hands team play he made against Carolina that saved the game. I mean, you don't really think about plays like that, but they matter. I mean, so it's just some of those things where you look at the course of a season and some of that stuff just gets lost in shuffle. I guess some people are a little bit upset because Calais Campbell signing with Miami. I hadn't seen that yet. I don't.
Yeah,
think Calais Campbell was a target in the first place, but
no, he definitely wasn't. He definitely wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think so. But okay, bummer.
But yeah, no, it is a pretty cool story though because he played because he played college at Miami and now he's going back to Miami. He's going back to Miami to play with the Dolphins. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and like it was a Jason Pierre-Paul. Yeah, I remember Jason Pierre-Paul had that same opportunity. That's so it happens like that. Man, so that was the big things about minicamp, and before that, we got to talk about 7-on-7. We saw 3 of the sickest catches.
Oh my gosh, dude!
Today. Now I don't know which one I want to start with, but I guess we can go in sequence. So let's start with the Dallin Holker one, because that was Carr's touchdown, but set the scene for you. So they're working in red zone, and look, they start at like the 18 and they move up a few yards. So it's like 18 to the 12 to the 8 to the 4 to the 2. And so I don't remember the yardage. I think it's probably about that 10-yard out distance, maybe the 8 to 10 yards. And Carr is looking, he's surveying, he throws it over the middle. DeMario gets a hand on it, but it's tipped up in the air, and Dallin Holker goes up and gets it, not only catches it, gets his feet in bounds. Like, and then John Wright was the closest corner that was there. I wish we could have recorded it. And of course, we're not able to. I know people have asked for footage, and I would love nothing more, because I said this, that if we were to put that out, it would go viral and it'd be the craziest things for today. And so it's a bummer for sure, but I don't know how else to explain it, but it was just a thing of beauty and another huge moment for Dallin Holker, who continues to make play after play in minicamp and OTAs.
Yeah, when I spoke with Clancy Barone earlier this week, he mentioned that by the time that they get out of training camp, they expect to see something very, very special from Dallin Holker. Well, they're kind of already seeing it. I mean, it's been awesome. He also took some snaps out of the backfield today, which is really interesting too. And so he's just been moving around, which is kind of what his brand is. But then him kind of going up and just being the bigger guy in that moment, keeping his eyes on where that ball was going after it was tipped, staying engaged, his concentration, all that, going up and then getting 2 feet in too, because this is at the back edge of the end zone. It was awesome. That was a heck of a catch.
Tremendous. And again, I don't know how else to, paint the picture for you. And so that was instantly one of the best plays of the day. And so, and the thing is, it didn't stop there, because Haener had another one, you know what I'm saying? He had the hook up. It was to Equanimeous St. Brown. I can explain it, but I'm gonna let you go ahead and explain it, because I talk too much and a lot of times anyway. So
no, dude, you're good. So this one was pretty cool, because it was kind of like it was kind of extracurricular almost. Equanimeous St. Brown's lined up out wide on the left with Marshawn Lattimore guarding him. They run a fade first, trying to get to the back of the end zone. Marshawn takes away the fade, but Equanimeous keeps working, keeps looking for work, keeps grinding, keeps going. And so he's just kind of running the back of the end zone. So Jake Haener puts it up with some pretty good location on it. It was kind of like when Jameis threw that touchdown in the back of the end zone to Marquez Callaway. He's over there somewhere, kind of a situation. Put that up for Equanimeous St. Brown, who's 6'4", humongous. And the good thing about Equanimeous St. Brown is that he's 6'4" and he plays like he's 6'4". We've seen this over and over again in camp so far. And he just kind of goes up and makes this big leaping catch with a toe tap coming in, a little bit of toe drag swag. It was awesome too. That was a really good one. I think that the Holker one, if I'm ranking these, I might put the Holker one above this one, just because of the additional complication or challenge of the tipped ball. But man, these two were 3 plays apart. No, only 2 plays apart from one another.
Right.
And so we were just my goodness, they're just going off in these red zone drills right now.
I know.
But even that wasn't the last one.
No, it was not. And on that one, I put on my notes, because they're always entertaining. Heck of a catch. I put hell of catch. And then footwork, because those are 2 of the biggest things to appreciate on that one. And so again, we talked about St. Brown and Cedric Wilson. Again, guys that Dennis Allen said, just put their head down and come to work, and you're seeing that. And so when they got signed, they're not really players that jump off the screen at you. You're not like, man, this ain't Odell Beckham Jr., but these are veterans, guys who have a purpose. And we've said Cedric Wilson Jr. is the slot guy at this point. I don't know that anything's going to change there, but based on what we've seen, I feel good about that. I feel that they know what they get in Equanimeous St. Brown and his blocking. And so I think that obviously gives him a leg up on the competition too. But, just if they can keep it going in training camp.
Yeah, it's kind of like having a Juwan Jennings who played for the San Francisco 49ers last year. Very, very similar skill set. Juwan Jennings also, throws touchdowns in Super Bowls. So we'll have to see if Cedric Wilson can do that. But
Taysom Hill's can do that.
Yeah. But as a blocker, as a guy that can play in the slot and be the big body dude, be a shield, box out type of guy, he's got a very similar skill set to Juwan Jennings, I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I had to smirk, because I'm like, this is my guy. Even before all of the Super Bowl went off, I was like, this is the guy the Saints need. Like this is the type of receiver that I want to see in the Saints offense. And unfortunately, San Francisco did the smart thing and kept him and all that good stuff. So, but let's go into this final touchdown that came from Spencer Rattler. It was to A.T. Perry, AT, the Saints Star Wars, A.T. Perry in the back of the end zone. It just a fantastic throw. He's working against Rezjon Wright, and great throw by Spencer Rattler. I mean, like a rope, if you will. And, I put in there that it just left the defense just like in disbelief. And it did because of what happened. And the thing is, again, a great throw, great catch by A.T. Perry. And then in my notes, I put holy expletive. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And that's what I wrote on it, because that I think that could have been like, the Holker one was great, but I don't know. It's between him and that Perry catch. Those two were awesome. And I think the Rattler throw was it was something to appreciate about how on point that was. But man, you were there with that vantage point. What did you see and what did you like about that?
Yeah, that one, that's so cool too. Like this is the part to where like the football nerd in me comes out, is like we were standing right behind all three of these catches. Like we were literally right there behind the end zone, which is awesome. And so I got the A.T. Perry catch winning it, man. That one takes the number one spot for me.
I wouldn't disagree there,
because
I think it's close.
He just had to go up and be the bigger dude again. And the thing that I loved about it is that when he and the defender both jumped up to go and get the ball, the defender jumped with momentum, so he was kind of jumping up and moving laterally. A.T. Perry just jumped straight up. He just jumped straight up, went up there and caught the ball, and then came down. The moment that he caught the football, this is what became my favorite part. The moment that he caught the football, he locked eyes with the defender.
I'm the captain now.
Yes, as he was coming down. Gets 2 feet in and just looks at him. Like no words, no text, no dialogue, just stage direction. He just stared at him. And that was it. And that was my favorite part of it, was because like that's the attitude that you want to see from A.T. Perry. Like A.T. Perry is a very, very talented player. And as Dennis Allen said today, he's got inconsistencies in his game. Like he had a drop earlier in these same drills in the back of the end zone. And so
on the slant
or in the end zone. And so there are things that like you want to see him get more consistent with, but moments like that are the ones that are like, okay, there he is. And the good thing about it is that like you don't starve for those moments when it comes to A.T. Perry. Like I remember Brandon Coleman back in the day, big dude, great blocker, would go up every now and then and just make these insane 50-50 ball catches, but didn't do it consistently enough that it was like his identity.
Right.
It feels like A.T. Perry still does this consistently enough. He just has inconsistencies in some of the other things, like concentration drops and stuff like that, that you'd like to see get a little bit better. But this stuff is consistent. Like this was kind of better than the jump ball catch she had against the Minnesota Vikings last year.
I would agree. That was impressive.
It was like that. Yeah. It was like that kind of a thing. And we saw that so often at the end of last year that like you can really, A.T. Perry is not a guy you have to wonder if he has it. You know that he has it. You just want to see it more consistently.
Yeah. And look, I don't worry about the consistency because they've got the coach to make sure that it is consistent.
Yeah, ain't that true?
And so again, we've talked about it, but this is a dilemma. If things track right now, it is going to be a dilemma for this team because you've got obviously Olave, Shaheed, and right now Cedric Wilson for his skill set, he'd be your slot guy. And then from there, maybe you put in St. Brown and Perry, and then you got to figure out, are you going to keep a 6 wide receiver? Is that Bub Means? Is that going to be what do you do with Jermaine Jackson and Mason Tipton we've talked about that's kind of come on here. And so, and then we've yet to see Stanley Morgan Jr., but if he can get in healthy and start making some things, that'll be interesting as well. But now it suddenly looks like maybe this is I don't want to say a good problem to have, but maybe it's a bigger decision and maybe something that when we came in here and said, I'm not sure about this receiving core, to now we kind of see it come together and it looks like it could be something pretty good.
Yeah, it's really interesting because they don't have, they've got Chris Olave, who's the marquee name, But,
Right.
they don't have like the established NFL star. They don't have the Stephon Diggs, the Jamar Chase, the Justin Jefferson, I would even kind of put T. Higgins in that category. Like, they don't have the recognizable name, the Cooper Kupp. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They
That's what
don't
I was
have
thinking of.
that guy.
Yeah.
They have Chris Olave, but then the other guys are really good. They're just not those like household names and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad wide receiver core. There's a theory in the NFL, or it used to be in the NFL, maybe it's changed over the years, but there's a theory in the NFL that having in your secondary, having, let's say, 2 safeties, 2 corners, having 4 Bs, like B graded players, is better than having 1A and 3 Cs, or 1A and 2 Ds and a C, or something like that. You know what I mean? I think there's some truth to that when it comes to the wide receiver play too. You can have that A and a bunch of Bs and be really, really set. I mean, think about and look, the scheme helps too, right? Think about all the years with Sean Payton. Marcus Colston, 7th round pick. Lance Moore, undrafted. Some of these other guys that he utilized. I mean, he had Austin Carr scoring touchdowns on Thanksgiving days and stuff like that. Like, the scheme helps a ton when it comes to those guys. And I think the Saints are finally back into that side of they're in that column again, to where they have a system that will turn those, C graded receivers on some teams into B graded receivers on this team. And I think we're starting to see at least the early elements of that possibility in minicamp.
Yeah, David Patton is who comes to mind for me because of who he
Yes.
was. He was at the tail end of his career and how well he did with Drew. And I mean, even you look at somebody like Lance Moore stepping up. I mean, he was an undrafted guy and he carved a role. And I mean, again, was Lance Moore ever going to make a Pro Bowl? Unfortunately, no. But a lot of these guys weren't. And Colston always got snubbed from the Pro Bowl despite all of his production. And so,
wild.
You're right. I don't think it doesn't matter because the Pro Bowl honestly doesn't mean anything anymore, really. Like, I mean, it's some people have that stuff built in the contract, but it's not like what it used to be. And so it's more, I recognize the name, so that's who goes in. It's not based off of play. It hasn't been for years. And so, and it's a shame, but what are you going to do? Nothing really.
Yeah.
All right. So switching gears, we talked about the awesomeness that's happened. I guess we can talk about the first team drill and then we can go into some questions. But before that, let's talk about a few things, I guess, attendance related. So Nick Saldiveri did leave practice early. It's a soft tissue. Dennis Allen said it's like groin hamstring. He was in the locker room afterwards. It's nothing serious right now. So I don't think I'd panic on that. Kool-Aid McKinstry doing same thing he did yesterday, stretch individual drills. And so again, he's working with Matt Ray off to the side. We saw Stanley Morgan again, no helmet. He's doing work off to the side. Same thing with Faion Hicks. I mean, he was also working off to the side. And, so again, there's no real surprises when it comes to attendance. It's pretty much the same thing that's happened. But definitely want to touch on that. But interestingly enough, what was interesting is after Saldiveri left, Lucas Patrick was in there, and then it was Shane Lemieux. But let's talk about the scuffle, the fisticuffs, I guess, in a way. I mean, and again, we're not going to sit here because if anybody said they had the best vantage point, I'd probably say how, because we were all there and players ran over it. But it involved Lucas Patrick and Trajan Jeffcoat, and there's some choice language that was used, and a rookie and a veteran. And are you surprised it took this long to maybe get a scuffle, and how quickly it did kind of get squelched, I guess, if you will. And they both got kicked out of practice for it too. So no nonsense.
Yeah, that's why it very quickly turned into Shane Lemieux at left guard. I was surprised that it happened at all. It just, I mean, it didn't feel, it felt like it was maybe like a little bit more. There were moments in practice today to where I was like, oh, okay, like they're really flying today, like in a good way. So you could feel like a little bit of the, I don't think intensity is the right word, John, but I don't know. I just felt like you could feel like a little bit of the competitiveness today, I think is really what it was. But it didn't feel like it was ever anything that was going to like bubble over anything. But it's so interesting to me, like how quickly things get scrappy like that in the red zone, or when you're doing these like backed up drills. That always seems to be when these fights happen. Like they never happen at midfield. You know what I mean? They always happen either on one side of the field or the other. And so it was an interesting one. But it seemed to be handled very quickly. It seemed to be handled in a very no nonsense way. They didn't linger on it at all. Like those guys just kind of got, all right, you're out of here. And then they were back on the field, and the rest of the team was back on the field and working. And so that was one of the things that I really appreciated about it, is that it didn't become like a thing where you need to bring the whole team together and deliver a message and do all this. No, it was just like, okay, get them out of here. Come on, let's get back to work. Like there's no nonsense. I like that approach.
Which did happen when we saw a lot of the Trevor Penning, Malcolm Roach, all that other stuff. That did happen. So again, everybody's gonna be like, oh my God, it's a fight. Boom, think it's a big old slobber knocker, as Jim Ross would say. But pretty tame, if you will. Yes. And so, man, I'm an old school wrestling fan. I grew up in the Attitude Era.
I say that every now and then, and I get so tickled every time that I say it. I love it.
That's why I always say, by God, that's that's Undertaker. Oh man. So
that's awesome.
You could sit here and go reminisce about all that fun stuff. That was a fun time in my childhood for sure. But let's kind of move into actual football, because we could talk about all reminiscing stuff and such, but that team drill that they ended up running. So it was kind of like starting in the shadow of their own goalpost and then work their way out, which was kind of interesting, if you will. And so I think just looking at some of those plays, I think that's obviously the big thing that I would point out is the, Jake Haener to Dallin Holker hookup. That was a big one, a crosser over the middle that he got. And then he also got wide open when a Nathan Peterman pass, you know what I'm saying? So again, Dallin Holker continues to make plays, but also don't want to take away from that first play where Jonathan Abram looked like he would have had a safety sack. And so it's a little bit tough going there in your own shadow in your end zone. That was some of the things I put in the deep throw to Mason Tipton that ended up in a PI, a really bad pass interference on Rezjon Wright. But then they tried him again on a deep throw, and Monty Rice ended up getting a sack. So your thoughts, your kind of observations from that, because this is where we saw a lot of this run, formation and some of the defensive tactics, if you will, that you were talking about earlier too.
Yeah, and one of the other, it was cool. The thing that was really interesting here was watching them blitz, right? And seeing like some blitzing in minicamp and everything like that. I love that. The other thing that I really enjoyed seeing was just sort of the variety of play action that was used in these situations. Derek Carr at one point faked a play action and then rolled to the middle of the field, and then threw to the middle of the field to
Jordan Mims,
Rashid Shaheed. No, this is one right before that. Okay. So it was short right. I thought Olave was open in the middle of the field though, but I don't think Derek Carr would have had time to see that. But I ended up getting to Rashid Shaheed. But the thing about that play action is that it was like play action, just kind of like a straight up drop back, like pretty basic, like fake the run up the middle, pull the ball up, get the ball out. But then the very next one was a play action rollout. So they faked the play action to, or actually what they would call a play action bootleg. So a bootleg typically refers to, they're pretty interchangeable nowadays, but a bootleg traditionally refers to faking a run to, let's say, the right side and then rolling out to the opposite side, to the left side. Whereas a play action rollout would be to fake, and then you're also going to the same side as you just faked the run, typically on an inside run. This one, what they did was that they faked the run to Jordan Mims. Derek Carr rolled to the opposite side, and then instead of looking for stuff on his side of the field, threw on a throwback to Jordan Mims on the opposite side of the field to the direction in which they were faking the run. So it just showed you just a little bit of diversity in terms of the way that they were running play action. There was also a play a little bit later that Jake Haener throw to Dallin Holker that you mentioned. Really nice design on that one, because it was also a play action. It was a play action rollout. So they faked the play action to one player, but then faked the play action to a second player, which is called a waggle or a woggle, depending upon how you pronounce it, but WAGGLE. If you
should be waggle
play actions. Yeah, it should be waggle, but I know some people say woggle. I don't know. But like if you're doing a play action waggle, it's two fakes or multiple fakes. And so they ran two fakes on that one and then rolled to the same side as the first fake and then Dallin Holker was just like magically wide open in the middle of the field. So it's just the diversity of the play action stuff I really enjoyed watching in that. And you have to have that when it comes to you got to have those creative things you can go to when you're backed up against your own goal line like that. So that was cool to see.
Every time you mention Waggle, all I picture is Joel Myers when he calls the Saints preseason game. That was like one of his terms. It's like it just, I can hear it in my head, and shout out to him because he does an awesome job. But that's one of the things.
Recently had a birthday too, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Scala said, make sure you talk about the sexy run gap defense, Ross.
I already talked about the sexy run gap defense.
Exactly. I'm just saying anything that you wanted to add on it, just to put an icing on the cake. So. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go into some of these questions because I think that's, unless you got anything else you want to talk about from camp, I think that was the main stuff. But anything else that stood out?
No, I think we got the majority of stuff. We did get to see more 11-on-11 kickoff.
True. Yeah, we got to see some different combos. They continue to try to do like these gadget plays a little bit. We kind of said that it's like a reverse or a fake reverse or throw lateral and stuff. And so this is the time to try that stuff out. But yeah.
Doesn't mean they're going to do any of it in time or in game, but like now's the time to kind of experiment with it, see all the different things that you can do, like, kind of figure all that kind of stuff out. And I think it's interesting. I can't wait. I'm so excited to see kickoffs this year.
Yeah. I am too. I mean, we've talked plenty about it, and so I think it's going to make things a lot better for the league. Yeah. And it's going to lead to more explosive plays, better field position, more scoring. It's going to drive people mad, and so those special teams units who give it the proper attention, like a Darren Rizzi, probably going to have a leg up. And so we'll find out about that. But I'm anxious to see it more real time with training camp. I think that's something we'll see a lot more of for sure. All right, let's knock out some of these questions. Benjamin asked, does Xander Horvath have any special skill set that might give him an advantage over Adam Prentice? I got a question about Xander Horvath the other day, or actually it was a question after our show about who's in the lead for fullback. I mean, it hasn't been too much that hasn't been done. And I think really, you could say both of them have been doing shifts, motion, lead blocks and stuff like that. But, a fullback, what's your take on Xander Horvath and is there anything that has an advantage over Adam Prentice, maybe other than the fact that he's a little bit younger and might have a little bit more experience in something like this?
Yeah, I think that the advantage that he might have in terms of a special skill set would be that like he's got a level of athleticism that is unique for the position. He's got experience being a pass catcher out of the backfield, things like that. I wouldn't say that either one of them has fully like separated themselves at this point through minicamp. I think that's fair to say. At least bearing in mind that we only see 3 of the like 9 or 10 OTA practices, right? So there's a lot of stuff that happens that we don't see when it comes to OTAs. So we'll probably get a better idea of that come training camp. So I would say either one of them is like in the lead or anything like that, or has separated themselves. But I think if you're looking for like why Horvath could be different, I think those are the things you look for: athleticism and then experience as a pass catcher out of the backfield.
For sure. Yeah. And it, again, one of those that I don't want to say this, but I don't know that either fullback will make the roster at this point, because it's just a numbers game, right? Like they could, they did that with Adam Prentice. Like they bring him back to practice squad or they do stuff. There's always those methods, and I don't want to take away from them because they do like a lot of work. But Horvath and Prentice are some of your main special teams guys. So again, when training camp gets in there, we'll be paying a lot closer attention to them. So for sure. Richard asked, he kind of mentioned, we talked about Kamara, like spent for 15, 20 minutes talking about Alvin Kamara. So after this is wrapped up, go back and check it out because we did talk a lot about what thinking that they're going to do. Hoodie Jube asked a fun question. If you could choose one, what are you choosing? It's Drew Brees back as a quarterback coach, Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback, but DA is a lifetime coach, or fire Dennis
Allen. This is an easy one for me.
Yeah, what you thinking?
2. You take Patrick Mahomes. You take the best quarterback in the like history of quarterbacks. Yeah, that's easy.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes with Clint Kubiak running the offense.
Yeah,
I mean,
Dennis Allen
could be like a lifetime coach.
Yeah, for real. Like Dennis Allen, that doesn't have any effect on anything. He doesn't coach the offense. He doesn't call the plays. Yeah, I'm all about that. Giving Clint Kubiak, Patrick Mahomes, 100%.
Yeah,
I don't. Drew Brees is a quarterback coach. Like I don't want that at all. Like, I'm just gonna be honest. Like, I think Drew Brees' legacy is established. He should never come back to New Orleans to do anything with the football team as a coach at all. Because it's just gonna, if he shows up and all of a sudden he's like a bad offensive coordinator or something like that, it ruins his legacy. No,
yeah,
your legacy's established. Like, never come back to the city of New Orleans to be a part of the football team ever.
Right.
Stay away.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady's not doing that. He's going to the analyst, and I think Drew's going to get another shot at being an analyst too and stuff. But and he even said in the offseason, like, he had like 5 quarterbacks reach out to him and are just getting guidance, advice, all that stuff. And so he still does play a big role in a lot of players' lives, if you will. And so, and he's always around the facility, still roots for the Saints, you know that and stuff. But yeah, I think Patrick Mahomes, I don't care what age Patrick Mahomes is, man. He's just he's it. He's the guy. And I mean, he wins, he gets Super Bowls, he does things. And so I think, was it last year that everybody thought that they were going to be dead? I mean, and then
because he didn't have a receiver core, blah blah, stuff like that. Now now they're set to 3-peat. Like, come on,
you lost Tyreek Hill, you're dead. Apparently not. So you still got Travis Kelce, so he's check notes pretty good. So, oh man, Lon asked about Nico Lalos, Bayou Spartan.
Bayou Spartan, what a name! That's dope.
Everybody's preseason dialing. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that, you know, you got to watch through training camp and the rotation. So the reps are going to be what you pay attention to. And again, we've talked about the defensive end group and such. And so I think it's a opportunity for him. You know, a lot of the undrafted free agents or guys like him are going to get more playing time in the preseason. So they have an opportunity to do some things. And so he's been on this practice squad for a long time and has been around. And so I'd expect that to keep going, but nothing really big to report on him. But he's one of the guys, I'll say, in the locker room who's probably most around and most available if we ever need him. You know what I mean? And so again, I appreciate that for sure. And is one of the mini golfers on the team. I found out like today. So Jordan Mims is a big golfer, but Cesar Ruiz is a huge golfer. He was telling me today that when he had that Liz Frank injury and stuff that, you know, he wasn't able to golf, but he took up golf and he's learning a little bit different elements of it. But he said, if I drive it straight, he can hit about 280 on the yards. Jeez. And so like, golly, that's a good solid drive. So man, don't go play golf with Cesar Ruiz. But he said, you know, he's better with his irons than he is with his driver. So I know you guys wanted to know that. So for sure. And let's see, let me go look at some of these other ones. I guess the thing is, so we talked about Justin Simmons, but market value on Justin Simmons, I don't think Justin Simmons is going to want to look at 11 million. Maybe if he can get somewhere pretty respectable with incentives, but you know, we've talked about that. I don't think they made the move specifically to sign Justin Simmons. I mean, I think on our wish list, he's the guy we'd want. But it does give us, there was another question that kind of came up here in tandem with that could be, it was about the safety, how we're looking at strong safety. I mean, you know, Simmons could practically play wherever if he wants, but you know, how do you feel about it? I think we've talked about it and said some stuff, but I feel like Jonathan Abrams playing really confident. That's the guy. And he's a guy that right now, if we're playing a game, then he's the guy, right? I think for me, and I feel really good about him. And I think just talking about him specifically, one of the things Joe Woods had talked about for him is him and Tyron's communication is like 100 right now. And that's so important of playing the safety position that you got to have that communication. You got to be dialed in on assignments. And so, look, again, he's not a Marcus Williams. He's not something. Oh, Marcus may go into the Dolphins. That was a little bit interesting sidebar, but good luck with that. And hopefully he does well. I mean,
that's all right. They got Javon Holland. They'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah. So your thoughts on the safety group?
Yeah. I asked Joe Woods, you know, one of the things I wanted to ask him was, or one of the things I did ask him, and if any of you are interested in being sports journalists, stuff like that, there's a reason why I asked a yes or no question here, because I legitimately wanted a yes or no answer and then immediately give a follow-up. If you ask a yes or no question, have a follow-up ready for yes or no. Don't just ask a yes or no question, because they're just going to say yes or no, and then you won't get anything else. And so what I asked Joe Woods was, you know, we saw how good Tyrann Mathieu and Jonathan Abram looked at the end of last year, last 2 games of the season. And sort of what I was asking was, do you feel that they have carried the momentum of their success at the end of the season into camp so far? Because he said yes. Then I asked, what works? Like, what works about that tandem? And yeah, it was communication the whole way was the thing. And then they also like the aggressiveness of Jonathan Abram. Like, I had somebody tell me Jonathan Abram plays the safety position the way that safety should play the safety position. And like, that wasn't a Joe Woods quote. That was somebody else that I spoke with. But like, that's just one of those things that, I mean, that's a big time vote of confidence, for a guy that's coming in and doing that. So they really like the way that Jonathan Abram plays. They like the aggression that he brings because it's a controlled aggression. He's not super reckless. I think he learned his lesson at time because I believe, if I remember correctly, he was the guy that against the Saints, like, ran into the camera crane or something like that at one point. I think it was like the first game in Vegas or something.
Sounds
so
right.
like everything about that was new. But like, he's got just a very controlled aggression about him and stuff like that. And they like that, especially for somebody that's got to be able to come down and play against the run or rush the passer, like we saw in the first team drills today. So yeah, I think it's Jonathan Abram's spot. I'm excited to see a little bit more Jordan Howden learning that role. He's more of a deep safety right now, but they want him to learn more of the box stuff. And so I think he'll get those opportunities and stuff. And Joe Woods also talked about how, like, last year they kind of looked at Jordan Howden and said, oh, we need somebody to play that. You go. And then they just kind of like sent him out there and he did it and stuff like that. So, it just goes to show you sort of like the malleability of a guy like that. But yeah, I think Jonathan Abram, if I were to, like, if they're, like you said, if they're playing a game tomorrow, it's Jonathan Abram starting at strong safety.
Yeah. And not that anybody asked, solid dude. Like, he's a really awesome dude. Great story from last year. I mean, he's changed a lot of things personally. He owns a ranch. He does horses and stuff. Like, he has horses, he breeds and stuff and all that. And so, like, really cool if you ever look at it. But he can ride a horse and stuff. I mean, it's not really stuff you know about some of these guys, but he's got a pretty cool story to him. And so I always appreciate stuff like that, because
same.
Know these players, I think, is one of Ross and I's favorite thing, because most people go talk shop, but what good is it if you can't establish rapport and learn people? You know what I'm saying? So just how it goes. As we're winding down here already, golly, this time just flies. Benjamin asks, it's kind of a hand in hand. Is anybody on the starters for defensive line rising above the rest? And then obviously Scala talks about Christian Boyd, who we've talked about plenty. But, there's something to be said about guys like Kendall Vickers, who continues to be in the starting role. Brian Brzez's not yet in that kind of capacity yet. And so it's giving an opportunity for others to kind of be in there and such. But, I talked to Kendall Vickers, and man, he's excited and he's feels like he's kind of right at home with his scheme and how they're attacking things and how they're learning things. And so I think there's something to be said for a veteran like that. And then we've talked about Kyler Ball a little bit, but, I think right now, if again, you play in a game, it's Shepard, it's Saunders, it's Brzee, and I don't want to just dismiss Kendall Vickers, but I think Christian Boyd has a definitive role on this team. And, so much of what we've seen from him is very Malcolm Roach-esque, but maybe a little bit more upside.
Yeah, he was immediately the first guy that came to mind too. He's the one that maybe, is the player that maybe I didn't expect to look the way that he looked so quickly. And has turned out to look so quickly. And look, I've talked to like Sam Munson from over the NFL analyst over at PFF. And one of the things that he talked about was that, like, this was such a unique year for the NFL draft because a lot of the things that would typically be seen as red flags in certain years were unavoidable this year. And Christian Boyd kind of checks one of those boxes as being a guy that not only that took the extra year of eligibility and played longer and came out to the draft older and everything like that. And a lot of players did it. It wasn't just Christian Boyd. A ton of players came out older, 5-6 years in college. And so this was like the perfect draft class for Christian Boyd to be a part of. And I think the Saints are benefiting from that right now, because I think that a lot of teams get a little bit worried when they draft like the older guy that they won't have the development gap that they can fill. But I think that with Christian Boyd coming from a smaller school, having a really focused role, and having like a very specific sort of like set of tangibles and intangibles that work for his position, I think there's still the development there to be had. And I think we're starting to see it.
Yeah, I agree. And he's one of those mini players. I mean, I don't want to say stack rank him, but he's up there in the players that we want to see a lot from training camp.
Yeah.
And of course, that'll probably be a future episode when we do get to that point. And so, again, when pads come on, that'll be a telltale for a lot. And I think you're going to see offense probably come pretty good out of the gate. Maybe defense catches up. I mean, it's going to be a back and forth thing. I really am interested to see how some of these guys do against San Francisco when they come to town. And I'm not sitting here expecting a whole ton, but I think the experience going up against Justin Herbert, got Hebert, Louisiana Lafayette, Cajun guy and in Cajun roots somewhat. That's where it goes to me. But Herbert, going up against him last year was pretty good. Him and Easton Stick. Yep. So yeah, for sure. So
I'm so excited to hear the answer to this.
Yeah, so this is a specialized. Tostitos was running a special brand.
Well, we have to say the question. We have to say the question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Sorry, since everybody who's listening to this podcast can clearly see everything that's going on this show that we're talking about. Sorry, podcast people. But thank you again. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're on Spotify, Apple, all that fun stuff. Anyways, so the question from Scala is about the why do I have a box of Tostitos on the shelf? Is it a Fiesta Bowl thing? So I have a bunch of swag in this room, and you can't see it behind my my boom arm, but a Detroit Red Wings, which is my favorite hockey team. I'm a big hockey player. I played 20 years and stuff, and I miss it every single day. But Tostitos was running something special for the season. They were doing a branded thing for each team. And so I think it's empty. I'm pretty sure it's empty. I think so, but it is a specialized bag that is Saints branded. And so it's just one of those things that I keep around because it's a cool thing to have. Like I have some really cool stuff in this room and things that I've gotten over the years. And so, that's the long and the short. I think I got that. 5-6 years ago, maybe it's been up there for a bit, but I can confirm I'm 99% positive there's no chips in there. That would be really
weird. So funny. My favorite swag thing that I have up here, because I also have a lot of swag in my background, but my favorite one I just dropped on the ground, so clearly I must really love it.
Right, yeah.
But my favorite thing is this sticker that I have that is like it's themed on like the Obey clothing brand, where it's just like the Andre the Giant face and it says Obey down at the bottom, but instead it's Hank Hill and it says propane. Easily my favorite thing.
Oh my god.
Literally one of my favorite things that I own. Like I won't even take this off of the sticker backing. I just leave it up here.
Oh man, and all I can think of is the Baja Blast thing. You see on there, man.
That's one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yeah, I know. Low key.
That's easily one of my favorite things that I own.
When we, maybe not talk about football one day, we can talk about all the nostalgic things that we had. And I got tons of stuff up there. I've got bobbleheads out the yin yang. I've got crazy stuff that just. I don't know. I've got useless stuff. You know what I mean? I'm like the Griswolds or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We'll have to do like a casual, just like chat episode one day before training camp starts.
Yeah, hang out and stuff. And look, I'll say this too. We're early in the process, but anybody that is out in California, we are talking about doing a live show out there.
Yes.
We have been looking at that and stuff. So stay tuned for that. But if you're in the area, they haven't said if fans are coming or anything like that, but if you're in the area, and we'll make ourselves available, not saying like we do this big meetup or anything, but man, we like to kick it with fans. We like to hang out. We really enjoy that. So just stay tuned for that. I don't have any specific things, and not saying I forgot about it, but also we forgot about some of that. And yeah, Ross, that's your old stomping ground. So
yeah,
we got
on my grad school campus.
Yeah. Yes, a Stevie Y fan. Yes, Will. I don't have it's there's a picture literally up in the top left over here next to like a bottle, big old bottle cap. That's Steve Eisman. Yes, huge. That was one of my big idols growing up from the Red Wings. Shout out to them. Hope they get back in the playoffs. All right, Ross. Well, look, this is sadly the end of no football for weeks, but we're going to work on some, put our heads together and see what we're going to do as far as content. Ross is going to take a vacation and much needed vacation. I'm going to take a much needed vacation as well and go play with some sharks in Florida next week. So that'll be fun and stuff. But what you got cooking in Locked On, what you working on, and obviously anything that you want to plug before we kind of get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, the bulk of my show coming up tomorrow is all about how Chris Olave is going to be a star in 2024, and what I've seen at minicamp OTAs that gives me that idea. I also just went through like stuff I liked from the final minicamp practice, as well as some more thoughts on the Taysom Hill contract extension, what it means, all those other things. So that's coming up tomorrow. Going to work on some stuff for next week as well. Stock ride, like stock up, stock down type stuff for OTAs, minicamp. Like, still 5 days a week. I'll be 5 days a week all off season. Even while I'm on vacation, I'm going to do shows. So it'll be fun. So I'm looking forward to it. And that's mostly what I got cooking. What about you? Over at
I mean, as always, for sure. Yeah, as always, once we get a chance to digest all this, I'm going to put together a whole what we kind of learned from minicamp and just kind of obviously leading up to training camp. We'll look at all the position breakdowns. I always do a thing every year about the top 25 questions the Saints have to answer over the next couple of months. And so there's going to be a lot cooking in the lab. Next week I'll have some stuff scheduled out because I'm going to be on the beach. I'm going to be enjoying some of that with my family. And so that'll be good. And so, it'll just be working a little bit on this and obviously monitoring some of the news and stuff like that. But we're going to find ways to give you some content and talk and kick it and stuff. And, man, we really appreciate you guys tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your grandma, tell all of them, your mom and them, if you will, and stuff. And, again, we really appreciate the support. Man, I don't know what else to say, Ross. It's just I'm blown away. Oh, let me say this. Happy birthday, Jerry. One of our avid supporters. Right. His birthday's tomorrow for sure. And thank you, Sarah Toby, from that for sure. Thank you much for the continuous coverage. We love doing this. It's something we haven't even cracked 25 episodes, but we just love doing this. And so hopefully big things are on the horizon and such. And so we're not a thing without you guys and the support of Who Dat Nation and all those football fans. And we're just going to keep paying it forward as much as we can. So Ross, parting thoughts, shots, remarks. What's the Kendrick score?
Oh yeah. Kendrick score update. I think it's still at 4-2, but something really interesting today happened. They played a J. Cole song and then turned the volume all the way down, which is the best way to enjoy J. Cole's music is with the volume down. So that's my parting shot.
Hey, I can't argue with that. So I can't argue with that. It is funny with some of the music selections. It went from Future and Drake some and all that. And it was like AC/DC and stuff. Yeah, I was just like, what? I don't know, but yeah, I don't. They're not in charge of music. I don't know who's in charge of the playlist every day, but whatever. Yeah. At any rate, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. That's going to do it for our episode of Second and Saints. Again, if you want, check out past episodes. If you want to learn everything about minicamp, send us information on Twitter. My DMs are always open. I'm sure Ross's DMs are all open as well. Always. If you got questions or anything like that we can answer, again, appreciate everything that you guys do for us, and we just continue to show up for you guys. So we'll be checking in soon. So don't forget to hit those subscribe notifications too, because you'll know when we're going to go live too, and we'll make sure to tweet it out and do that fun stuff. That'll do it for us tonight. Y'all be good people and enjoy the time without Saints football. I know it's going to be the longest stretch ever. So good luck. We'll be here. Have a good night, guys. Appreciate it.